Welcome everyone to the Proven Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Church. I'm a music producer from Northeast Ohio. I began this weekly interview series to give you different perspectives from artists, producers, engineers, and other individuals in the music industry. In each episode, we touch on not only what has helped the person succeed, but we also touch on what has shaped them into the person that they are today. I hope you're able to gain some real proven knowledge from the show, and that it helps elevate you on your own journey to success as well. Let's get into it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 263 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today I welcomed an artist from Bronx, New York. His name is BRIEL The Artist. He actually sent me some tracks via the demo submissions for Proven Knowledge a few months ago. They were songs that were already released. One of them called The Blinds that really stood out to me. So I got in touch with him, and we actually made it happen to get him on the podcast this week. And he was able to share kind of the inspiration behind The Blinds and his other couple tracks, one called Blur and the other called Lady Song, all of which are part of his brand new project called Damn Genesis, which is actually out now at the time of this recording. So definitely go give that a listen. But he talked about kind of the inspiration behind how he became an artist in general, having different influences from R&B artists like Summer Walker, the importance that she has had on his music and his other influences, like I said, as well. And really just what went into this project creatively, how it all kind of felt like an organic, seamless process, the help he had along the way from people on his team, and really just what he looks for this project to bring him as an artist. And I'm just excited to see what he does moving forward. I love his aesthetics, his style. I really just love everything he's doing right now. And I'm excited to see, the different ways we can work together moving forward as well. So as always, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And without further ado, let's get into it. For sure, I definitely resonated with the music, and I was happy that you wanted to be on the show today. And we'll just get right into it. We usually have the guests kind of introduce themselves, let us know kind of how you got started in music, and really just the background behind you and what you do.
Okay. So my name is BRIEL The Artist, and I make alternative R&B music. I make a bit of everything, As for me, I grew up in a household full of music. My dad was a DJ. My mom was an R&B lover. So I kind of grew up listening to a lot of music, like different types of music, like old school hip hop, especially old school hip hop, like old school music. Like I would listen to like Usher, Chris Brown, Trey Songz. And yeah, I just grew up listening to a lot of music, and then just different genres of music like rock. So I kind of inherited my music from my dad, and that's what got me into music. But as for like singing and songwriting, it took some years, but I would say around 16 I started like singing. I would like just play a whole entire album and just sing along to it, and that's how I started really getting my voice in singing, and then I just kept on doing that until I branched out and did my own thing.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's great to hear that it's kind of been involved for so long in your life as well. And you're from Bronx, right? The Bronx in New York, which I feel like is New York in general is kind of a melting pot of different styles and different influences as well. So I'm kind of curious to know for you, like, what was growing up in New York like from your perspective, and how has it kind of influenced you as an artist, if at all?
Oh, growing up in New York, you have to have some thick skin. You have to have some thick skin, because growing in New York is really hard. It's really tough. I grew up in the projects, so as for me, it was a little bit more that came with that. But I'll say, like, it's definitely been a melting pot. Growing up, I grew up around a lot of Black people, a lot of Hispanic people, so you kind of get that melting pot of like of Black American culture, and then also a little bit of Latin culture as well. So I just kind of got a taste of both of that. I have friends who are Dominicans, so I got a little bit of like that music, and a little bit of like Spanish speaking music. So it's been a big melting pot, and plus also with like Africans as well, with dance hall and stuff. So I kind of like had a melting pot growing up around different types of music, and I got to learn a lot from those cultures.
Yeah, and I imagine that's a big source of inspiration too, just on the
Yeah.
daily, being able to kind of see and absorb and live life, and have that different experience every single day, which is super awesome. And how do you think that has kind of influenced your approach to songwriting as well? And I think more importantly, how do you think your songwriting in general has evolved since the beginning? Because you said you were even writing around like 16 years old and starting to figure it out. So how do you think your writing has evolved since then to where it is now?
I feel like just listening to a lot of music, a lot of artists. Like I listened to a lot of Summer Walker. That was like one of my like main artists that inspired me. And just hearing how raunchy she was in the music, and I'm like, whoa! Like I grew up listening to R&B, and I'm like, well, you can say that. Like you can inherit this emotion. You can like just say it flat out like this, like explicit. And I feel like that really inspired me to really just say what I really want to say. Because I feel like in music you have to be so poetic, and you have to rhyme like this, and sometimes I just want to just say in a song like I'm feeling mad, and I just want to just say it like that, but say it in a way where it's like I'm inheriting that. So I feel like definitely in R&B space, which is predominantly, oh my gosh, which is mostly Black artists, that definitely like inspired me to say what I want to say without trying to come off like polished in a way.
Yeah. I think that kind of leads me into a pretty good question. I think I've asked this to some other R&B artists before, especially in recent years. I feel like R&B has really evolved, especially in probably the last 6 or 7 years, where there's a lot of different artists making different styles of R&B. And I see, a lot of traditionalists not very happy with modern R&B and yada, yada, yada. It's kind of like hip hop in that way, where it's like, there's different subgenres within the genre, and I think it's great because I think it allows for more expression. I think it allows, which is what you just said, for people to be themselves. You know what I mean? Be their true selves. So what is your take on that? Because I feel like you probably echo a little bit of that sentiment as well, where you believe in the power of true expression and being able to make the music you want to make. So how do you feel about that?
I believe that the old heads need to let R&B be R&B. Because like music, I understand too, because sometimes I'll be like, old school is good, but I believe that people need to be able to express the way that they express. Times is different now. Music is very different now. It's not the same music as before. So I believe that people should just let music just be, let people express the way that they want to express. And and I think it's a beautiful thing because everything don't have to be one way. Back then we had like the Whitney Houstons, the vocalists, and I think everybody should be appreciated in what they do. Not everybody is a vocalist. Some people are more songwriting material, and some people are more, a little bit, on the darker tone in their voice. So I feel like what I love about R&B, I'll say music now, is just there's different styles, and everybody gets to gravitate towards what fits for them, what is pleasing to their ears. And I feel like, as for me, I'm not the biggest vocalist, but I feel like I appreciate artists like a Frank Ocean because, he's not a vocalist like a Whitney Houston or Ariana Grande, but he pleases my ears. And, in my eyes, I'm like, he makes the greatest music. And I feel like, that inspires me to make the music I make, and inspires me to be like, what? I don't have to be this type of artist because we have artists like these people here, and it makes me feel like, what? Like I have room to sit in this industry.
Yeah. I think it keeps the sense of individuality at play, which I think is what music and art in general is all about, because if we lose that, we're kind of losing the fabric of what it means to be a creative in general. So I think that's a big thing, and I definitely agree. I think there's kind of flavors for everybody, there's a style for everybody as well. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. And it's great that you have influences as well that you listen to that have inspired you in that way, and inspired you to do what you do. And I definitely want to touch on some of your songs because you dropped a few in, the past few months. You just dropped a song called Blur, literally like a week ago at this point, not even, I don't think. And that's a great production, by the way. I love the track. I got to check it out earlier today.
Shout out to Keeley.
Yeah, that's a great one, man. I'm excited to know the story on that, and obviously The Blinds as well, and Lady's Song too. So, let us know about these tracks, the ones you've come out with so far in 2025.
So, I was starting a new year, and I was like, you know what? First, when I came up with The Blinds, I was like, I want an introduction. I want something that's not going to be super strong. Even though The Blinds is a great song, but I was like, I just want something to just say, I am here. So I started off with The Blinds. It's a song about infatuation, about falling in love, and, deciding to be like, okay, I'm going in too deep, so I need to, I'm recognizing that I'm in an unhealthy pattern, so I'm going to, realize that, and I'm going to stop. So that was basically The Blinds. And the next song following that was Lady's Song. It was an empowerment song for my female friends out there, for the women that's in my life that helped me be the man who I am today. That woman inspired me a lot. Even with the artists that inspired me, like Summer Walker, Ari Lennox, Doja Cat, SZA. So I just felt like I needed to make that song. And that song was basically, as a man, basically telling women that you don't need to let these men in these toxic relationships get on your time. Because there's a lot of women that I know that settle for, toxic relationships. And I always tell them, you deserve better. And I wanted to put that in the song so they can, so they can just listen to that song back. Because sometimes they be coming to me like, Brielle, what do I do in this situation? I'm just be like, play Lady Song. Just play it. So that was that song. And I'll say one of my favorite singles. I really do like Lady Song. But then I feel like Blur swept everything out. It kicked every song, kicked The Blinds out, Lady Song. And I really just enjoy Blur because it's a staple of Damn Genesis. It's a staple of my mixtape. I purposely chose the songs that didn't sound too much like my mixtape because my mixtape have a certain sound. And I was like, you know what, Blur, originally it was going to be Pretty as a third single, but I was like, no, I need to give them something that's that says this is Damn Genesis. And I felt like the theme of the song, the personality was there. I just felt like it was meant to be the lead single for Damn Genesis. And basically Blur is about, when you're in love with somebody and that person is emotionally getting away from you and you're trying to be like, hey, I'm here, I love you, tell me what's going on, and they're not really reciprocating that energy to you. And the part where I'm rapping as Pimp B, my alter ego, he's kind of telling jokes and being humorous because sometimes when we're in love with somebody, we try to lighten the mood with humor and trying to be funny when in reality your partner's like, I'm not laughing, it ain't funny. So that was that, and in the end it didn't get resolved. So that was basically Blur.
Hey there, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a quick minute out to let you know about a couple different ways that you can support the podcast. One of the ways is by clicking that support the podcast button within your streaming platform. That is if you want to be a monthly supporter of the show. You can contribute either 99 cents, $5, or $10 a month. So that's the first way, and that's the more traditional way that we've had now for the last couple years. The other method that we actually just recently introduced is from our good friends over at Ko-fi. Ko-fi is a virtual tip jar. We have set our limit to a minimum of $10, but you can go make one-time, one-off donations. So if you visit ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast, you'll be able to donate. And all these different forms of donation go towards getting new guests every single week, getting potential sponsors on board to do giveaways, and overall just making the show better for you guys. So if you want to do that Ko-fi link, it's ko-fi.com /The Proven Knowledge Podcast. Otherwise, again, look for that support the podcast button in your streaming platform if you'd like to be a monthly supporter. And I just want to say thank you guys for your contributions. And without further ado, let's get back into the episode. It's crazy too because it has such a serious connotation, but I feel like it's also like a summertime anthem too, like with the beat and everything, and like the way that it plays back. I think it has that summertime vibe. So I think putting out now is like the perfect time to put it out too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's awesome. I'm definitely, and another thing I want to say too, I love the branding behind all the singles. Like they all stood out, the cover art, the photo shoots you did around each one. I thought that was really awesome. So talk a bit about kind of what went into conceptualizing the stories behind each song and kind of doing the rollout for them as well. And who were you working with, like doing the photos and doing things like that to kind of pair with the songs?
So I was working with my great publicist who I love so much, Alex Mundo. I'm also working with my manager, Alexander Fernandez. I have to differentiate the two because they both Alexes. But so as for, on the publicist, on the, getting everything right with like the cover art, the pictures, I was Alex Mundo. He was definitely like doing his thing. He's doing his big one, giving me promo ideas. He was even uplifting me when those days where I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it today. He was like, no, you gotta get up. You gotta do this video. You gotta do this video. Even when I was slacking on the blinds with the promo, he was like, you slacking, like you gotta do. So, having him there to hold me accountable and to really just like be there, it was like, it definitely like helped this project, the promotion side of the project be what it is. As for the music itself, I was locked in that studio, I was getting them beats, I was, writing everything, and it happened really fast. Like I was inside school, which I'm happy I'm not, because doing school and then doing music was not easy, but I definitely made it work.
Yeah.
But it just came, like making the music just came so easy. Like I did the blinds, everything, to be honest, everything was a freestyle. The blinds, it was a freestyle, and then I just put words to it, and it just, I kind of like bust out like 4 or 5 songs in like a week. It was like that smooth. But then over time, I was like, okay, life is lifing, but I'll say, I came up with Damn Genesis and the picture. I would say, like, to be honest, I was confused about the name of the track. I was really confused with, like, okay, what am I going to name it? I had to sit on it a little bit. And I just listened to every song back, and I was like, you know what? Like, these songs is telling a story. Like, these songs is saying something. Because usually people think, like, when you're making music, you know everything, but sometimes you listen to the music back and you're like, wait, I noticed this is what's happening. So I kind of just, listened to everything, and then I just came up with a track. As for the cover, I was looking for inspiration on Pinterest, and I seen this picture of, it was like a grass background, and it was like this person chasing this person in the back, and I'm like, I just download that picture and put it as the cover, and I'm like, this is so fitting. And that's when I decided, you know what, I'm going to take a picture of me, in the background, and that's how that came about. The cover and the name, and I was like, it's really fitting. And then the definition of the mixtape was like, okay, like this is what it's going to be about, and that's how it came about it.
Yeah, it's awesome to kind of be in that flow state as well. Like you just said, it kind of like everything was coming naturally. You know what I mean? Even when things kind of came up, it was like you still were able to work through that and find the inspiration in different places. And like you said, through your friend as well, helping you out, kind of giving you that other voice to say, hey, we can do this, you can do this, more importantly. So that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that the process went that smoothly as well. And as far as the project itself, when can we expect that to come out? Do you have like a release date in mind or any type of timeline that you can give people?
So the mixtape is coming out June 25th.
Oh, nice.
So
nice. Few
make
weeks.
sure that, by the time this come out, it should already be out. So
Yeah.
I hope y'all buying it, because I definitely, support indie artists. I'm saying, we need it.
Yep.
But also, stream, and just love the music. I intended for this project to be listened to. Usually artists will be like stream, but I really want people to listen to this and like get the message from this, because I put my heart into this, and I was being very vulnerable in this music too. This is based on a true story about what I went through, how I've been feeling, and I just really want people to listen to this and see if it applies to your life. I feel like each track somehow is going to apply to somebody. Like, for example, Check. I know somebody be working at 9 to 5 that they don't like, and their boss is getting on their nerves. I know it. So it's like, I feel like there's a song for every single body that's going to listen to it. And I believe that, Damn Genesis is a staple for a lot of people who's been going through, a rebirth in their life. Like, they want to turn their life around, or they just want to tell their story and they want to feel seen.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Being able to find that sense of relatability is a big part of what we can do as artists to kind of help the people listening to our stuff. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you. Early congrats on it, because like we said, it'll be out in a few weeks. And I know you put a lot of work into it as well. So I think that's a big accomplishment to see it come to fruition. So congrats on that.
Thanks.
For sure.
I appreciate it.
For sure. Absolutely. And we're down to the last few questions here. These are ones I ask on every episode, more life-related questions. The first one is, if you could go back 10 years ago and give yourself any piece of advice, or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
Oh, I want to say I wouldn't ask myself to change nothing at all, but I think that would probably be a lie. I mean, I wouldn't change anything. I say the advice I would give myself, or I would tell myself, is that, trust in God. Because I feel like what got me here is God. And I went through a big battle with, kind of like believing, trying to find out who I am. And I'll say when I decided to give my life to Christ, that's when I feel like everything started happening. Like I got my manager, then I started putting out my music and, started doing performances, and it happened really fast. So I feel like, I would tell myself, try yourself with Christ again. And I would say that, but a part of me is kind of like, everything happens for a reason. I feel like I needed that time to really to sit with myself and deny it, and then later come back to it. So I would tell myself, get your life right with Christ, but then I would say it's okay for my past self to not listen to it. So I would say for both in a way.
It's almost like you got to let it play out the way it's supposed to in real time as well. Kind of let things fall into place. So, I definitely can resonate with that as well. And if we flip that then and we say 10 years from now, where do you think you envision yourself musically and in life in general?
I would say first and foremost, I see myself happier. I see myself with a better relationship with Christ. It's still the beginning, it's still a little tough. I'm trying to, work on myself personally. But I'll say musically, you said 10 years?
Yeah, 10 years.
I see myself officially having my album, because I'm currently in my mixtape phase right now. So, I definitely see an album. I see, business ventures going on, because, music is not the only thing I want to do. I do want to eventually direct my own. I want to direct my own project. I'll say, interview. I also want to, I'm also, working on, doing interviews with other artists. So, just building my brand. I see my brand as, I want to build more of the BRIEL The Artist brand, and just venture out into different things. I believe that, I can accomplish anything, and I know God has a plan for me, and I got to keep on praying to him and picking up my Bible, because it's a little tough picking up my Bible, but just following down that path, and continuing to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's definitely a lot of room for different opportunities And I saw you got a nice website that you launched too, so you're going to be putting a lot of things on there in the future, I imagine. So that's going to be cool to
definitely.
see that grow. Yeah, that's awesome. And do you have any final words of wisdom today before we get out of here?
I would just say that your journey is different. And if you feel like your life is not going right, then I feel like just talk to God about it. Just take time for yourself and to just think what you want for yourself, because there's a difference between living and being alive. And I feel like a lot of people are alive, but it's not the same as living. And I feel like everybody has a purpose on this life, and you need to step into it. And it's not going to be easy. There's going to be times where you're not going to want to get up out of bed. You're going to be bed rotting, scrolling on TikTok all day, Instagram Reels, and it happens to the best of us. But, that's just evil trying to enter our body and trying to take over us. And, we have to fight against it. In this life, it's a spiritual warfare. So, we're going to be fighting we're going to be having battles every day, but we have to be strong to fight. And, your journey is your journey. Don't ever compare yourself to somebody else's journey, because you don't know what that person had to do to get there. So, just work on what is in your journey, what is in your goals, and keep your integrity. There's a lot of people that will want you to do stuff that's out of your character, and, you have to be able to, do what you're going to do in the right way.
Yeah. Like you said, it is work. Every single day it's work. You got to get up, you got to make it happen. But the work is something that pays off in the long run. And you can look back and be proud of what you were able to do, which I think is the biggest thing of all. And I got to say for you, you're doing that right now, man. You're doing that actively. And again, congratulations on everything you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thanks again for coming on the show and sharing some of your journey. And, I'm happy to have you back anytime. Maybe when the album comes out. We'll see. How's that sound?
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, everyone, for listening today. That was episode 263. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit that support button on your podcast streaming platform if you'd like to send us any funds. And feel free to leave us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. So we'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.